History remembers him as one of the most powerful and feared leaders of the 20th century, a man whose decisions shaped the fate of millions, a ruler who transformed an entire nation through fear, control, and absolute authority. His name was Joseph Stalin. But dictators are not born in palaces. They are shaped by circumstances, by trauma, and by the choices they make along the way. Long before he ruled the Soviet Union, Stalin was just a poor boy growing up in a violent home in a small, forgotten town. A boy surrounded by hardship, humiliation, and struggle. His father was a shoemaker who struggled to keep steady work. His mother was a deeply religious woman who dreamed that her son would one day escape poverty. Joseph Stalin was born in 1878 in the small town of Gori, located in what is now modern-day Georgia. His birth name was Joseph Jugashvili. His family lived in extreme poverty. But life inside their home was far from peaceful. Stalin's father was known for his violent temper and heavy drinking. Arguments were frequent, and violence was not uncommon. Neighbors often reported hearing shouting and fighting coming from the house. For young Joseph, childhood was not a place of safety. It was a place of fear. And environments like this often shape how a child learns to see the world. A place where power meant survival. Joseph's childhood struggles were not only emotional, they were physical as well. At the age of 7, he contracted smallpox, a disease that left permanent scars across his face. Later, a serious accident involving a carriage injured his arm, leaving it partially disabled for the rest of his life. These experiences made him feel different from other children. He was smaller, weaker, and often isolated. Children can be cruel, and young Joseph frequently found himself mocked or excluded. Historians believe these early humiliations may have contributed to something deep within his personality, a burning desire to prove himself, to never again appear weak in the eyes of others. Despite the difficulties of his childhood, Joseph was an intelligent student. His mother believed education could change his future. She dreamed that her son would become a priest. So Joseph was sent to a religious seminary school in Tbilisi. The institution was strict, extremely strict. Students were heavily monitored, books were censored, and independent thinking was discouraged. For many students, this environment created discipline, but for Joseph, it created resentment. The more rules he encountered, the more he began questioning authority. And soon, he began secretly reading books that were banned by the school. Books that would change the course of his life. Among the forbidden books Joseph discovered were the writings of Karl Marx. Marx believed society was built upon inequality, that the wealthy controlled power while the working class suffered. For Joseph, these ideas felt personal. They gave meaning to the anger he had carried since childhood, the poverty, the humiliation, the violence he had seen growing up. Soon, Joseph began attending secret meetings with revolutionary groups. These gatherings discussed radical ideas about overthrowing the existing system. And slowly, the quiet seminary student began transforming, not into a priest, but into a revolutionary. Eventually, Joseph was expelled from the seminary, but by then his path had already changed forever. After leaving the seminary, Joseph fully joined the revolutionary movement. At the time, the Russian Empire was filled with unrest. Revolutionary groups were growing rapidly. Joseph became involved with the Bolsheviks, a faction determined to overthrow the ruling system. In order to fund their movement, some revolutionary groups organized robberies and underground operations. Joseph proved to be effective in the dangerous world of revolutionary politics. He showed qualities that would define his future: patience, discipline, and a willingness to operate in secrecy. During this time, he adopted a new name, Stalin, a name that translates roughly to man of steel. In 1917, revolution erupted across the Russian Empire. The Bolsheviks seized power and began building a new political system. Joseph Stalin slowly climbed through the ranks of the new government. Unlike many leaders who sought attention and popularity, Stalin focused on something far more powerful: control behind the scenes. He built networks of loyalty, placed allies in key positions, and gradually strengthened his influence within the government. By the late 1920s, Stalin had consolidated power and became the central figure in the Soviet leadership. The boy who once struggled for recognition was now leading one of the most powerful nations on Earth. Under Stalin's leadership, the Soviet Union underwent massive transformation. Industrialization expanded rapidly, but the era was also marked by political repression, fear, and suffering for millions of people. Government purges, forced labor camps, and strict political control defined much of the period. The system Stalin built relied heavily on fear and absolute authority. History continues to debate his legacy. Some view him as a leader who transformed a nation. Others remember him primarily for the immense human cost of his rule. What is clear, however, is that the journey from a troubled childhood to absolute power shaped one of the most controversial figures in modern history. The story of Joseph Stalin reminds us of a difficult truth about history. Powerful leaders are often shaped long before they ever reach power, by their environment, their struggles, and the choices they make along the way. Understanding these origins does not excuse the consequences, but it may help us understand how such figures rise in the first place. Because history is not only about what happened, it is also about how it began.